Hello everyone and welcome to the second part of our social authentication in Flutter and Firebase. So if you haven't watched part 1, then I will definitely suggest you to first go and watch part 1, because in part 1 we have completed the sign in with Google and sign in with Facebook in both our iOS and Android simulator. And also if you go and look to our database, here you can see we have the authentication of Facebook and authentication of Google, and we are also storing those data in our Firestore database. So if you have not watched part 1, I will suggest you to first go and watch part 1 and complete all this sign in with Google and sign in with Facebook, then we can move to this part. So now after you are back from that part, let's start with this. But before I start, I wanted to tell you something, that I just received a comment from some guy. He was telling me that the code that you wrote is the complex code. So I thought, okay, so this means people are having confusion in understanding how this authentication part works. So I thought of creating a Figma file in which I can explain you how everything is moving here. So here you can see we have this Figma file. First of all, I will be moving with the Google authentication. So I can just zoom in here and let's see. So okay, we can just do it here. So if you want to get in-depth explanation of the authentication part, then you can definitely watch me. Or if you directly want me to start coding with the sign in with Twitter or the sign in with phone authentication, then you can skip to this particular time frame which is displayed on the bottom side of your screen. Now enough talking, let me just explain how this authentication part will be done. So here you can see we have the Google sign in. So the function that we have been creating here is sign in with Google, and the package that we are using is Google sign in. Now the thing that we want is we will be fetching the data from Google API, the data regarding the account that has been used to sign in, and the data that we need is the profile photo, the email, the name, and just everything is automatically generated. And then after fetching the data from the API, we are going to store in our Firestore database. So the 5 fields that we are going to store is the profile photo that we got from the API, name, email, and then this is the custom data that we will be adding to distinguish between what provider was used to sign into the application, and also this user ID which is automatically generated by the Firebase itself. Now if you go to the sign in provider, here you can see if we search for the sign in with Google, now we start with this Google sign in authentication. This Google sign in account class, what this do here is, first of all, let's say I sign in with this account a@gmail.com. So that Google sign in account, this particular class will hold a Google account which has been used for sign in. And now after that, what we have to do here is, first of all, we will see whether the particular account which has been used for sign in is not null. Okay, so we got this as not null, and only then we will be proceeding further. Okay, so now we got the account that will be used for authentication. The next thing that we have to do is we have to process the authentication part. So this authentication part will be processed here, and it will be stored in this particular class Google sign in authentication. Here you can see holds authentication token after sign in. So here what we did, here we just took the account of the user and then we just proceeded with the authentication. And now after we did the authentication, we will be having auth token. So what we did here is we just access the auth token and the ID token from this Google sign in authentication. Here you can see the Google auth provider.credential. It will be giving us the access token and the ID token, and we store all this data in the credential, and then finally use those credentials to sign in to our Firebase. This is simple as that, and that's the thing for the Google sign in. And now let's see how we have signed in using the Facebook. So if you see the sign in with Facebook, here is a little bit twist than what we did in Google sign in. Right now with the sign in with Google is the function name that we are having inside our project, and the package that we are using is the Flutter Facebook Auth. But the thing here is, first of all, we were getting the data from the API of Google, and then that data can be fetched and stored to the Firestore database. But here with the package Flutter Facebook Auth, they have mentioned this information on beforehand, that the login result, the result after proceeding with the login, will be only generating the status and the access token. But for fetching the email and the profile photo and the name, we have to go through the Graph API. So here you can see, first of all, we got the result. Now the result can be taken from the authentication of Facebook. So this Facebook auth instance, here we have defined this as final Facebook auth dot instance. This is from the particular package that I was just talking about. Now if you go to sign in with Facebook, And here, if you see this particular URL, graph API URL, we have to provide a access token, but access token can be only fetched from this login result. And this screenshot that I have added here, this has been taken from the documentation of this particular package, Flutter Facebook Auth. Now, after that, we get the result. So here you can see we got the sign in result after proceeding with Facebook Auth.login. If this is success, then we will be calling our graph API for fetching the data. And this graph response is a response, so we have to fetch this in so we have to just decode this thing. So we fetch the data, but the thing is to add this particular authentication inside our Google Firebase, we have to fetch the credential of Facebook sign in and then sign in using the auth credential. So here you can see we just went to the auth credential, got the Facebook auth provider to give us the package, to give us the credentials, and these credentials from the login result. Here you can see result.accesstoken.token, and then we just proceeded to the sign in and fetch the data from there. So this was for the Facebook. And now if we see for the Twitter, the thing that we'll be coding in this part, how you are going to do that is, first of all, because I don't have the code here, so I can just explain from the Figma design only. So here you can see in this Twitter sign in, the function that will be created is obviously sign in with Twitter. The package that we are going to use is Twitter logging. This is the most updated package that is available on pub.dev, and this Twitter login package has two versions, version 1 and a version 2. We will be using version 2 because that version 2 is a little bit of bug free. You don't need to worry much about version 1 and version 2 because version 2 is the by default version that has been implemented in this package. So now the thing that we will be doing here is, first of all, let me tell you that there are very few videos on the authentication with Twitter on YouTube, and even if there are videos, they are outdated. So that's the reason why I created this particular series in which I have implemented all the social authentications. So now if you go with sign in with Twitter, here you can see we have the particular API, but this API only gives the data if you have upgraded to the elevated pack. And this was the thing that I also mentioned in the ending of the particular part 1. Just go and create an account and just upgrade to elevated package. So I'll be showing you how you can do that, don't worry. Elevated plan, we can fetch the image URL, the ID and the name of that particular account that has been used to sign in to the application using the Twitter. So if we get those email ID and name, then we can just store those in the Firebase. So now we can discuss with the authentication part for this. So here you can see we will first of all sign in, and if the result of the sign in is success, then we'll be using the Twitter auth provider class to get the credential and then use those credential in the Firebase auth function to sign into the Firebase. Simple as that, nothing much to worry about here. Other than that, we have the last thing, which is our login with phone. The package that we are going to use is the Firebase authentication package, which is by default the package which we have been using till now for authenticating. So this is the package that comes with Firebase itself. So they provide a function for login with phone, sorry. And now the thing here is, first of all, we will verify the phone number. So this verify phone number has few parameters of which are verification complete. So this parameter is called when the verification has been completed by this code send widget. So this code send will be a pop-up that will be showing to the user, or rather will be the pop-up for which will be showing to the user, in which they will be entering the OTP that has been provided to the particular SMS. So here you can see the phone auth provider will give the credential and then use their credential to sign into the Firebase. Rather, we will be seeing how this is implemented while coding, so no need to worry much about. So without any further ado, let's start coding our sign in with Twitter first. Okay, so here you can see we are back in the application. First of all, what we'll be doing is we will be going to our login screen, and here inside our login screen, the part where we created sign in with Facebook loading button. So here you can see Facebook loading button. We can just go below this, and here we will write Twitter loading button. And now for Twitter, we can just copy this. Let me just take this from here. We'll copy and paste it here. So this rounded loading button and an on press function will be handle Facebook auth. Right now it is handle Facebook auth. So we can just write handle Twitter auth. And if you see the function, we can just create a new function here, handling Twitter auth. So we'll write handle Twitter auth. This will be an async function, and done. And I guess the Twitter logo is here. If we reload, but we can provide a little bit of sized box here. We can just copy this and I can paste it here. This will give you a little bit of space. Okay, perfect. Now if we go to the top side, here we have to create a new controller for our Twitter. So we'll write final rounded loading button controller. This will be Twitter controller, and then so if you go here, rounded loading button handle Twitter authentication controller will be Twitter controller. And let's see whether we can provide any other color, because the blue color is already assigned to our sign in with Facebook. If we see light blue accent, if this will work, or rather light blue. Okay, so we can keep the light blue. We'll also copy this and paste it here. Now as far as this thing is concerned with Facebook, so we'll write Twitter, and this will become sign in with Twitter. We can also do continue with Twitter. This is up to you. So I guess this is okay. Okay, so now I will open up my web browser and go to the Twitter development panel. So I'll open up my Chrome, and here let me go to developers.twitter.com. You can also search directly Twitter developer and you will be shown with this website. I'm already signed into the account. For this tutorial, I've created a new account of /Flutter. I am not on Twitter with the brand account of mine, but I am on Twitter with a personal account. So let me just go to developer portal. So if you are opening this developer.twitter for the first time, I guess you will be shown with this little form which you need to fill. So the country, I am from India. I am a student. Will Twitter content or deliver information available to the government entity? No. Let's do this. Now I'll just click on submit. Okay, so they are saying me to verify the email. Success. Okay, my email has been verified. So now it is asking me for the app name. So I can write this social auth Flutter. We have some of the API keys here. I guess I'll just go to my notes, copy these here, and then I can go to my dashboard. And now we are here on the dashboard. The thing that I was asking you all is, first of all, you need to go to this projects and apps, and here you see this option, do you need elevated access for your project? Just click on the apply button here, and it will ask for the basic information like the name. You can write /Flutter, coding skill, some experience, and click on next. And then the important thing that you have to do here is you have to first of all give all the information that they are asking for, and then I guess they will take 24 hours to switch your particular project to an elevated plan. Now I'll just sign out from this and I will sign in with the email that I have, in which I already have the access for elevated plan. So I'll just go here and write my particular account. And now if you go and see my developer portal, here you can see I have this projects and app, and in which I have the Flutter Twitter login, and the plan is currently elevated. So only with elevated plan we are able to fetch the information that we are asking for and saving all those information to the Google Firebase. So now you can see I'll just go in here, and first of all we will go to a sign-in provider and create a new function. This will be sign in with Twitter. This will be Fuchsia sign in with Twitter and async function. Now first of all let us add the package that we are using for this authentication. The package that we are going to use is this Twitter login. Here you can see this has been published 2 months ago and it is totally working fine. This is also example code here and few of the guidelines for adding the configuration to the Android and also the iOS. Don't worry, we will be doing that too. So first of all, we'll just open our command palette and add the dependency. You can just see I have this extension pubspec, so you can just search it here and add it. And now I will search for Twitter login. and this should add the particular package to my project. So we got a package added. Now as we did for the Facebook, the Google and the Firebase, we have to also create an instance here. So we can create an instance like final. You can see this thing, this particular code, they are creating the Twitter login instance here. So this will be something like Twitter login is equals to Twitter login. Now it is asking for the API key, the API secret, and the redirect URL. So this is the important part here. So what you need to do here is, first of all, we will go to our config.dart file, and here we have to create few values. Like, first of all, we will create final, or rather we can write static final. This will be API key Twitter, and we'll just paste our API key here just in a second, and we'll write the secret key Twitter. And if I open my Chrome, here you can see in the settings, here you can see if we go to this block login, and if you see this keys and token, then it is showing me API keys and secret. We just need to regenerate them, and here we have the API key. We will paste the API key here. Then the next thing, we have the API key secret, so we'll copy and paste it here. Perfect. Now we just go in here and click on the dashboard. Now for the API key, what we have to do here is we will write config.API key Twitter, and we will write config.secret key Twitter. Now the redirect URL, this is the important part here. If you go to the documentation, okay, so redirect URL, it is showing right now as example. And also if you see for the iOS, we have assigned a particular string here. This will be the URL scheme. And in Android, we have assigned this particular URL of example in our Android configuration. So we can create a redirect URL here is social auth, and you have to write this in this format. Click on save. Then we have to do the part here also. We go to Android manifest, and inside our Android manifest we have to paste all of these things below this launcher part, this intent filter, and it is also in an intent filter class here. We'll just copy and paste it here. I guess we need to drag a little bit here, and this can be like this, and perfect. We don't need the host here. We just need to assign the URL, the one that we created here. This was social auth, and perfect. The same we will be also doing for info.plist for the iOS part. Here in place of this, we will write a string and paste it here. Now if we close this, then we have to restart the application. And by the time it is restarting the application, we can just close this Safari window because we don't need the documentation right now. We have done the part that was mentioned in the documentation and the important part. Okay, so we just close the application, and so if you go and click on this run without debugging option, and inside the debug console you are shown with any error, then I will suggest you first of all go to your terminal, and then you can go to the iOS folder that we have inside this project, and then run this command. And this is only for the M1 users and not for the any Intel users. So this was the thing that I wanted to tell. Now we can just click on this run without debugging and see whether this is working fine or not. Okay, so we got the application restarted again, and now go to our sign-in provider and start coding our sign-in with Twitter. So remember, we have created this instance for Twitter login, and now we will be using that Twitter login to sign into the application. So we can just use await Twitter login dot login version 2. Remember to use the login version 2. And now this is an auth result, so we will be storing this in an auth result. So this will be final auth result, let's say. But there is nothing as such auth result here, so we can just save it here. This will become an auth result. And now if we check this auth result dot status is equals to Twitter login status dot logged in, then if the authentication is successful, then we will be proceeding with the further part, else we can give this as has error is equals to true and notify our listeners. The same as we did here also, has error is equals to true and notify our listeners. And now inside this if condition, first of all we will try to get the credential from the Twitter auth provider and then use those credentials to sign into the Firebase. So for getting the credential, what we can do here is we will write final credential and we will be using Twitter auth provider dot credential to get the access token and the secret token, and these can be taken from our auth result. So we will write auth result dot auth token. This can be null, so we will add a null check here, and here also we will write auth result dot auth token secret. I don't know why is it not showing me this thing. Okay, and here we will add this. So we got the credential here. Now we'll be using those credentials to sign into our Firebase. So here we will write await Firebase auth dot sign in with credential, and then we will use the credential. Here we are not storing the value of this because the auth result has already provided us the necessary information that we need regarding the user. So we just need to store all those information in a variable. So we can write this final user details, and this will be auth result dot user. And now we just need to save all the data. So we will write first of all the name can be user details dot name. One more important thing, the email will not be provided in this user details. So what we can do here is the Firebase auth that we use for signing into Twitter, we can just call our Firebase auth and get the current user email address. So how you can do that here is we will save this as Firebase auth dot current user dot email. So this way we can get the current user's email address, and we'll be saving that inside this email part. And here also for the image URL, this image URL is provided through the response that we got, so we can just use the user details. So this will be, let's say, thumbnail email, I guess, image. And the last thing that we have is the user ID. So this will be user details dot ID. Is it showing me? Okay, so this is an integer value. We will write this, and provider can be Twitter, has error is equals to false, and we can just notify our listeners about this change. Perfect. So okay, so this try block is showing me an error because we have to provide on catch also. So we'll just copy this and paste it here. Perfect. I guess Twitter authentication will work properly. Let me go to my login screen, and here inside our login screen, the thing that we have to do here is we'll be doing everything that is same here. So we'll just copy and paste it inside here. So this will change to final SP sign in provider. This is okay. This is okay. Then here we will like sign in with Twitter. Then we'll get those value. If the has error is true, then we will display a snack bar and we will reset the Twitter controller. Else we will check whether user exists or not. If this user exists, then we will get the user values, and if this don't exist, and here we have to write Twitter controller dot success, and if this don't exist, then we have to save the data, and here also we'll write Twitter controller dot access. Perfect. So now it's time to check whether our Twitter authentication is working properly or not. So I'll just click on continue with Twitter, and let me see why this still loading up and not showing me. So here you can see failed to generate request token. Please check your API key or API secret. I have checked the API key and API secret, and they were working and they are absolutely fine. But then I just got into this thing and remembered that the previous project, because this is the old project, this block login, and in which I have the redirect URL as something different, and here I just created a new redirect email URL, which is social auth. So I think I would have to change that thing. So I'll just go to the dashboard, and here I have this application block login. And if you go to this user authentication settings, if I click on settings, and if I drag a little bit here, I can create another redirect URL, and this will be social auth. If I click on save, and now if I go to the dashboard, and if we click on reload and just go to our simulator, and I think this should work now. Continue with Twitter, and okay, the block auth want to use twitter.com to sign in. If I click on continue, and here if I enter, click on remember me and click on authorize application, we are redirected here, and okay, the identity provider configuration is not found. Okay, so we have not added this particular. Okay, so we made a mistake here, and I guess I would have to fix that. But a cool thing that I just got to know that the error handling is also working fine, and you just saw we were shown with the snack bar with the error thing. Now the error is we have to enable this authentication provider in our Firestore database, in our Firebase authentication. So you'll just go to this block auth, and here if you go to this project settings, or rather this authentication, and if we click on this sign in method, and here we can just add a new provider. This will be Twitter, and click on enable, and we need an API key and an API secret. So how you can generate those things is we'll just have those things generated. We'll just go to this config, we'll copy this, paste it here, we'll copy this, and we'll paste this here. We'll click on save, and I guess now everything should work. So let's go to this authentication, and let's see whether this will be added here or not. If I click on this thing, click on continue, this will open up a new window, and here if I click on authorize application, this should show me a new authentication part done here. And let's wait for that. We got the authentication done. So here you can see we got the image fetch, we have the welcome Shivan Singh, the email address, and this particular user ID. If we reload this, we have the Twitter authentication also happening here. And also if you see this Firestore database, we should be seeing a new document added. This is for Twitter, and this is for Facebook, and this is for Google, and so everything is working fine here. So the Twitter authentication is done. Now it's time for our phone authentication. So now what we can do here is just click on sign out, and here we will first of all go to our login screen. Inside our login screen, what we can do here is, first of all, after this Twitter part, we can just copy this thing and paste it again for our phone auth loading button, and here on press can be, let's say, next screen replace, and we can create a new screen. This will be phone auth screen. This will become material.dart. Here we can create a new stateful widget. This will be phone auth screen, and in place of this we will return a scaffold body center child text. This will be phone auth screen. You can just close this scaffold here, and now if we go back in here, and here if you click on this next screen replace, you will see we already created this particular Dart file in which we have these functionalities, like if you want to go to the next screen, and also if you want to replace the current screen with the next screen. So we can just call this thing here, so we don't have to write much code here. And here we will write the phone auth screen and close this. And the controller can be, let's say we can create another controller here. We don't have any use for this controller, but for this we can just create phone controller. And here if we go to this phone auth, and we will change this with phone controller. This can be black, this can be black, and this can be phone. And above this, what we can do here is we'll just copy this sized box, paste it here, and this will be sign in with phone. And now what we need to do next is, after we click on this next screen replace, we can also reset the particular button. So we will go phone controller dot reset, and now we are done for this login screen. We can just save this. Now if I click on sign in with phone, this will take me to the phone authentication screen where I can just code the authentication part. So now the thing that we will be using here is, first of all, I will replace this body with a single child scroll view, and the child can be a container. Inside a container we will have a form. So we will code that form in a while. Before that, we can create an app bar. This app bar will take, this is nothing as such complicated here. I'm just creating an app bar which will have a leading icon of going to the back screen, as we did the next screen replace. So we will not be shown with any back button here. So we can just code it ourselves. We will just write this elevation 0. Leading button can be an icon button. Icon can be icons that, or arrow back iOS. Color can be colors.black. And I guess we would have to provide an on press. Okay, so this will be icon. And this color can be colors.black here. We'll replace this. This will become a comma here. And on press can be next screen. Replace. And we will be redirected to our sign in screen. Or rather, the name of this was the login screen. And now, as we are going to create a form in which we will be getting the name of the user, the email address, and also the phone number. So we will have to create a form here, and for that form we will create a new key which will be final form key. This will be global key, and it will be of type form state. We'll write form state here. And other than the form key, the thing that we'll be also needing is our controllers, but we are not going to create the controllers right now. I'll just let you know what the controller that we'll be using here is the phone controller for our phone, the controller for our email, the controller for our name, and the controller for our OTP code. So now if we go to this particular form here, first of all, we'll create a new key. We will assign the key that we have created. This will become form key. And now inside the child, we can create a new column. That column will have a main axis alignment of center and the cross axis alignment of start. And now inside that we can create a new children which will have an image. The image can be the same one that we have on the splash screen. So this will become asset image config dot app icon, and I guess I can replace this. And now height can be 50 and width can be 50. Okay, so I will have to copy this thing here, paste it here. Perfect. And now other than the image, what we can do here is we will go and create, I guess this is showing, so we can create a padding here with a container. This will become edge insects all side 20. Okay, this is quite okay. So inside, so rather after our image, we will create our size box with a height, let's say 10. After that size box, we will create a text, and here we will write phone login with a style. So this style will be assigned in here. So this will be, let's say, font weight 20, and as you already know from the part 1, I prefer using this W500 weightage, font weight of 500. Let's say we go with 600. Yeah, this is also okay. Now we can again provide a size box of height 10. And after this, the important part comes here is creating the field for entering the phone number, the email, and also the name. So first of all, we can create the field for entering the name. So this will become text form field, inside which we will have a controller. So right now we don't have any controller, so we can just create a controller here, text editing controller. First controller will be phone controller. So this will become text editing controller, and we can just copy paste this, and here we will write email controller. It will become name controller, OTP code controller. Now we will assign this controller first of all to our name field, and here we can create a text input action. This action will be shown onto the keyboard like a next button, and we can provide some decorations. Let me just save this first and see how everything is looking right now. Okay, now we can provide some decorations like input decoration, and prefix icon can be okay, so I wrote this as prefix. This will become prefix icon. And now hint text can be, let's say, Adam Smith, and the hint style can be colors.gray with opacity 400, or rather this is not that good. Yeah, the enabled border will become outline input border, and here we can provide a border radius. This will become border radius dot circular, and with the 8 border side can be colors.gray 600, I guess. Okay, colors.gray only. And now I can create a const here. We can just copy this thing, paste the same thing in our focused border. We'll place a comma here, and now as far as our error border is concerned, so we will write error border, paste everything that is here, and now we will change this to red. Okay, if we reload, we'll be redirected to the splash screen, and now if we click on sign in with phone, we are redirected here. So I guess we got the name field done. We can do a validator also. We have not done the validator check. So validator can be if the value is if the value is empty. So if this is empty, we will return name cannot be empty, else we will return null. So the name field is done. What we can do here is we will assign a size box of height 10 and repeat the same thing that we just did with our email field also. We'll copy this, paste it here, and this will become value is empty. We will write email address cannot be empty, return null. This can be email controller, and the email will be, let's say, abc@gmail.com. We'll click on save, and this account circle can be changed with the email, and just everything is perfect. As far as our phone number is concerned, so we will write value. If this is empty, we will write phone number cannot be empty, else we will return a null here. And this can be changed with the done. This can be changed with the phone controller. Phone number can be, let's say, 1 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0. Perfect. You can click on save. I guess I would have to assign a size box here. So this will become size box with a height of, let's say, 10. Okay, this is now looking good. And here if we write phone, this is also looking good now. And other than this, we just need to assign a size box again with a height of, let's say, 10. And then we will do an elevated button this elevated button will have an on press, and other than the on press we will have a child which will be register. I guess this is not looking that good. We'll do an elevated button dot style from. The primary color can be colors dot, let's say red. Red is looking perfect. For on press we can create a new function here which will be future login. This will be an async function, and we can create a login. So this login field will take the particular context and so we can write build context, and we will also take the mobile number. So we'll write string mobile. So the mobile number here can be assigned from this phone controller dot text, but let me double check whether I have assigned the phone controller. Okay. So now we got the mobile number here. So inside this login button, first of all, inside this login function, what we will be doing here is first of all calling our provider, and here we will write sign in provider, and this read is not showing in here. So what we have to do here is we will import provider package, and now inside this function, this SB, or rather this SP is for the sign in provider. We also need to call our IP, which will be our internet provider. So this will become internet provider, and now if IP has internet is equals to false, then we will display a snack bar with a warning, check your internet connection. Color can be colors.red, and then if the internet is working perfectly fine, then we will check whether form has no error. So we will write form key dot current state and validate. And this was the reason I assigned the form key to the form, because we can now check whether the form has been successfully filled or not. So now if you see, if I click on register, I will be shown with the check internet warning. Okay, so I am shown with the check internet warning right now because we have not checked the internet. So we can write await IP dot check internet connection. And now if I reload, if I go and sign in with phone, and if I click on register, now it is showing me the warnings that if I remove this, and now if I just go to this screen, if I click on register, nothing will happen. So we just need to check whether the form has been successfully filled or not. And now if the form has been successfully filled, the next thing that we wanted to do here is we will call our Firebase Auth dot instance. We'll call our Firebase Auth dot instance and then do the verify phone number section. And now this verify phone number has a lot of values here. So you can see we have the phone number, the verification complete, the verification failed, the code sent, and the code auto retrieval timeout. So now as far as phone number is concerned, so we can assign the phone number to be the mobile. But before assigning that, I wanted to do a text.trim so as to remove any white space if there are present in this controller. Like if you enter this particular phone number and you assign 2-3 white spaces, so I just want them to be removed. And after with that, we can get the mobile number here and we assign the phone number here. And as far as verification is completed, we will be getting the credentials. So we'll just write auth credential. This will become credential and async function. And here we can await for Firebase auth.instance.sign in with credential. I guess this is not showing me sign in with credential right now. Okay, and here we can just pass the credential that we have here. So this was for the verification complete. And now as far as this code auto retrieval is concerned, so here inside this code auto retrieval, we don't have to do anything because this code auto retrieval is something like we can show a particular banner to the user to wait this particular time before sending the code. Where you can see if we get to know this code auto retrieval thing triggered when an SMS auto retrieval times out and provides a verification ID. So we don't need to do anything, so we can just write this like this. And now the verification failed. Inside this verification field, what we can do here is we'll call our Firebase Auth exception. We'll take the value in E, and here we will open the snack bar and write the message e.string, and the color can be colors.red. So this was a verification verification failed, and now the only thing that we have to do here is code send. But this code send is a function that will take two values, first of all a string and then a integer value. That integer value is this particular thing, that force resending token API to not being reloaded again and again if the user clicks on resending message again and again. So we just need to get those two values. So we'll write verification ID as a string, and the integer can be force resending token. We can just now click in here. Okay, and now we can just display a dialog here. So inside a dialog, first of all we want this to not be dismissal. So if any user click on outside the application, we want this not to be dismissed there, and the context can be context. Builder can be created with that particular context that we have. First of all, let me assign a colon here, and now we can return an alert dialog. This alert dialog will have a title which will be somewhat like this: text, enter code. And now the content can be, we will create a column here. We are using this main access main_access.main property so that the column don't take the entire screen. And inside this particular column, we are going to create a new child. This will be text field, and here we will call our controller, which will be our code controller, this OTP code controller. We click on save, and now we can just provide a little bit of decorations. So this can be input decoration, the same as we did above for these values. So this will become prefix icon, icons.code, and error border can be the one that we just created here. So this error border, this will become red. Then we have the enabled border, then we have the focused border. So we got the border completed here, and now we can assign a new sized box, let's say 10, and let's see how this looks right now. I click on register, so this will show me to enter this thing. So I'll enter this. I click on register, so this will check whether I am a robot or not. This is from the Firebase API itself, and now the given sign-in provider is disabled for this Firebase project. Okay. Now I just need to enable the phone number authentication. Click on save. If I click on register now, this is showing me a new pop-up window. And to be honest, on my real device, I just received an OTP. I will just show you on the screen. And now what we can do here is we have to just code this thing. So we will create a new button. This will be elevated button, and on press can be, we will just code this, and the child can be. So this means we are receiving the OTP. Now all we need to do is double check the OTP and redirect the user to our home screen with the data being saved to our database. So how you can do that is we will write on press. This will be an async. So the final code can be code controller dot text dot trim. We are also trimming the OTP entered by the user. So let's say I entered 123 and then provide a spaces here. So I'll just trimming that thing. So it and storing in a new variable and storing this in a new value code. And now what we can do here is we will write auth credential. This become auth credential, and now we call our phone auth provider to give us the credential for this phone authentication. So we'll write phone auth provider. Verification ID can be the one that we created here. Here you can see this verification ID, and the SMS code can be the code that we just received. Now after this, I guess the authentication would be done, and here we will get the user. So we can write Firebase auth. I guess I would have to write this in this format, Firebase auth dot instance. We can close this also, and if we write sign in with credentials, and we have the credentials as credential, this will become user, and done. Okay, so this is with the name auth credential, and now we got the user done. So what we can do here is we need to save the values, but we cannot save the value in this phone auth screen. So we can just go to our sign in provider, and here create a new function which will be a very small function to save all the values. So we can write phone number user. So this will become user. It will also take the name and email which we just entered from here. So the name can be name. This right now this is Shivan Singh. The email can be email which I entered, shivansingh@gmail.com. Image URL, let's say null, and the user ID can be this particular user which we have, and the phone number, and the provider will be phone, and we can just notify our listeners. If I click on save, and here if I go to my phone authentication screen again, we will just call our SP, and here we can write phone number user, and we have to provide the user. Email can be email controller.text, name can be name controller.text. We'll click on save, and now we saved all the values. So the next part as we were doing here is we will checking whether user exists or not, and then we are redirecting to our home screen. So we can just copy it from the one like our login screen. So here it will be somewhat okay. So sp.check. So let me just see till where this function is. Okay, and here if I write sp check user and await, then I can remove this, and here we will write next screen replace context, and this will become our home screen. I would have to call my home screen, and also do the same thing here. And now I guess this should work totally fine. So let me just bring this here. I'll just reload the application, and also place my, let me just open the Firebase. Inside of Firebase, if you see right now in our authentication part, we don't have any phone authentication. So if I click on sign in with phone, here if I enter Shivansh, and this will become shivansh@gmail.com. I'll enter my phone number, and let's click on register, and this should do a verification whether I am not a robot, so as to prevent the misuse of API. And this will show me a new alert box, and here inside this alert box, after I enter the OTP that has been provided, and if I click on confirm, we should be taking back to our home screen with the data being saved in our database. Let me also see the debug console. Okay, so right now we are not showing any image, but if I reload, okay, so the number has been successfully added. If I also go to the file store database, we are shown with this particular number, but the thing is we don't have any image. So let's say user account image. If I go to the Google thing and I take this thing, open image in new tab, and now if I paste this in our database and reload the application, I think we should be shown with this image. Okay, so this thing is not working, I guess. Let me check whether sign in has been successfully set up or not, because we are redirected to our sign in screen and this should not be the thing that we wanted. Okay, so the issue was if I click on reload, I am redirected to the sign in screen, and that is something which I don't want, because I want a signed in user to be redirected to the home screen. So then I thought, why is this issue happening? So as I was going to the sign in provider, in the part 1 also, at this place, instead of coding this as signed in, I coded this as signed in, because we are checking signed in, SIGNED, as a boolean value that is present in the shared preferences, but when it's the time to saving that particular boolean value, we are saving signed in. So we don't want that to happen, and I will update this in the GitHub repo also. Now if I click on sign in with phone, and we will enter the phone number. If I click on register, we will be shown with this authentication screen that is done by the Firebase itself, and now they will open up a pop-up and 483616. If I click on confirm, this should show me as an existing user. Okay, so we got a existing user done here, and now let's see whether our shared preference is working or not. Now if I click on reload, and let's see whether our shared preference is working. Okay, so we got our shared preferences working here, and now if I click on sign out, and now if I reload, we should be redirected to the sign in screen. Perfect. So we got the sign in with Google done, sign in with Facebook done, continue with Twitter done, and sign in with phone done. Now let's also check whether this is working in our Android device or not. So I just quit that particular iOS simulator and I will start my Pixel device. Just wait for this to start. Okay, so we got the application also started in our Android emulator, and here if you can see, we have this sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook. So we double check this sign in with Google and sign in with Facebook in both our iOS simulator and also an Android emulator in part 1 of this tutorial. So now in this part 2, we coded our continue with Twitter and sign in with phone part. So we'll just click on continue with Twitter, and here authorize login to access your account. I'll click on authorize app, and we are redirected here, and we should be shown in our debug console as an existing user, and we fetched all those detail here. Now if I click on sign out and click on sign in with phone, here if I enter, let's say we'll create a new account here with a new phone number. Now let's say if I enter any random name and a random email, but I will enter a phone number of mine. If I click on register, we open up a new window here, and this is verifying you are not a robot. It will ask me for the CAPTCHA, and after I verified, I will enter the code that I just received, which is 190668. I click on confirm, and now it is showing me a new user because we don't have anything as such. And so we got this particular series completed, in which we have implemented sign in with Google, with Facebook, continue with Twitter, and sign in with phone authentication. And I really think this is a great tutorial on YouTube in implementing all the social authentication providers offered by Firebase. So if you watched till this part, then thank you for watching and have a great day ahead. Happy coding.